Hello, welcome. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and I'm with Jennifer Wilson here. We're partners at Convergence Coaching, and we're here for our first live Convergence Coaching HR Huddle. So we're thrilled to be with you here today.
We sure are.
Yeah, we thought there was so much happening today in talent, and there has been for several years. I think it's been the number one challenge for CPA firms and a lot of organizations. And with this pandemic this past year, and a lot of the shifts, that we've had to make in firms, that we thought we should stop and talk about some of the HR new trends we're seeing and some strategies that we're finding. And there's so much, so we have to break it down into a small topic, right, Jen?
Yes, we sure do. It's huge.
So I think we thought we would start with remote and tackle remote today. And the rush to remote back in March, where virtually all of us went virtual. And at least, a portion of the people in our office, if not our entire office. I know accounting firms have been essential workers, but for the health and safety of both our team members and our clients, I think many, many firms have had people working at home. And now we're starting to come back to the office and work in this blended environment. We thought we should stop and say, what has been working. And the first thing that's been working is that we have found out remote works in a non-ideal scenario, with school in the unknown, virtual school, and we have shelter mates at home, and we have no or little childcare or inconsistent childcare. So we have thought that would work, and it has worked. And so now as we move back into defining a blended environment, how should we do that? And Jen, I think we thought today we would start with one of our premises of remote work, and that's defining anytime, anywhere work. Do you maybe want to say something about that?
Sure. Before we do that, right inside of that, one of the things that we do as HR professionals is we manage expectations in writing. That's one of the things we're supposed to be doing. We all know that when we manage expectations in writing and say, here's what's expected of you and here's what's expected of us, that we have more success. And when we don't, we have failure, we have conflict, we have upset, we have performance improvement discussions. We have all this stuff we have to deal with. So the reason I bring this up before we dive into anytime, anywhere, and really what that means to us is because I think right now a lot of firm HR professionals are being asked, and those that might not be HR focused in terms of education, but they're the HR person in the firm. Right. We all are sort of tasked right now with like, hey, update our remote work policy. Or update our flex work policy. And so I wanted to raise a philosophical thing, Tamera, and I didn't warn you about this, so sorry, it came to me in the last hour or so. But it's this idea that like my policy can be about how can I give everybody as much freedom as possible and yet make it workable? Or how can I regulate this thing? How many rules do I need to lay down? And one of my fears, and I know you share this because you've been doing the same work I've been doing with folks, is that right now in this revision period where we revise our flex and remote policies, that we're going to be like, what kind of rules can I put down? And in the spirit of anytime, anywhere work, I think that the HR professional or the HR partner or the person responsible for it needs to fight for max flex with clear expectations, not max rules and limits.
Right. And I think you're workable. So we've been working with some firms to help them update their policies, and we've been doing a lot of education and webinars and teaching and coaching with leadership teams. Workable is a word that we keep coming back to, and it has to be workable for the firm, for the client, for the team members, for the leadership team, and then each individual. And it is one size fits one, and that's the max flex, I think. And so I think we even laughed out loud reading our policy guidelines, because we've been doing this for years, and we read it in light of 2020, and we're like, this has got to go out the window. We need to start from scratch. So I think that's a really great place to start, Jen.
Yeah. And I think, Tamera, that where we kind of come from on this max flex idea, and this idea where you just were, which is workability, and I'm almost going to call it win, 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 right? Everybody's got to win. That what we have to do is try to figure out, how can we empower true anytime, anywhere work? And to us, and at Convergence, we have a bias because we have been anytime, anywhere for 20 years. And so we're not just talking about something theoretic. We're talking about something we live. And we have led firms down this path, and we know lots of them that have been living this way. So I'll tackle anytime, Tamara. And why don't you tackle anywhere? Perfect. So, and firms don't like either usually. There's usually some people that are like, I don't like this. So just want to acknowledge that. Anytime work means don't care when I work, my exact hours, just care what I produce or my output. Care about my ability to be accessible to clients so they can reach me. They're never saying, I can't reach her. She's never around. I can't, she doesn't respond to me during the business day. It can't be like that because that's not workable. That's not winnable. So it has to be like, I could be reached. I'm accessible. You can find me. I'm responsive, but you don't really care about my set start and end time. You don't care if I stop in the middle of the day and help my child get through something on their online schooling that they're doing right now. Right. Because I have to take 90 minutes and sit with them while they're doing something specific. And I'm not having to ask permission for that. Nobody cares. It's on my calendar though, in case you're looking for me. You can find me. You'll know where I am. You'd have to text me because I might not be near my work phone or near my email right that moment. But I'm working anytime that it works for me to work. And I'm also taking time to integrate the rest of my life into that. Right. So if that means for parents of young children in a on-premise old paradigm, the olden days before March, I might have wanted to go home from the office by 5:30 or 6, get dinner, put the kids, get them their baths, get them to bed, homework, whatever was going on, and then work in the evening and get my extra 2 or 3 hours then instead of staying at the office and cranking those 3 hours until 9 and missing time with my children. That's an example of any time in the on-premise. Anytime I gave you one, which was the homeschooling idea. Another is there are some of us who do better, really deep technical work at certain times of the day. Like I might be at 3:30 in the morning, 3:30 to 5:30. I'm up and I'm raring to go. I get my run in and then I work like a madman on something really hard. Well, don't look for me at 6 p.m. I don't want to have a phone call at 5 p.m. if that's who I am. So that's an example of anytime work. And wherever possible, we need to empower that and put in the systems and processes that cause us to be accessible and responsive and know where each other is and know how to measure results to be truly anytime. And we'd love you to work your policy to do that. So Tamara, what about anywhere?
Well, I want to say one more thing about anytime. So first of all, I think that's an example of documenting that expectation where you started. And then there is this other piece of anytime that some people think is part of this, and that is part-time or less than full-time. And so I might work reduced hours, which is a type of work arrangement I have with you, but it still falls under the anytime. And so we want to be specific about our expectation around that.
Yes, right. And we always say there's only one flex work arrangement that's less money, and it's part-time, which means less than full-time. And whether you want to call that hours or output or what that is, that's the less money. Otherwise, who cares? I get paid the same. I just work a different time than you do. And there are a ton of studies and all kinds of research out there that talk about people's chronotype, which is the time of day that their work juices flow the best, their brain works the best, they're the most engaged. And our chronotypes are different. But the workday, the traditional old-fashioned workday of 8 to 5 or whatever that was, it doesn't take into account my chronotype, which is night owl. I don't like 8 a.m. I'll do it if I have to, but I like to work between 10 and 2 a.m. at least. I love that time. I'm crazy about it. And I don't know why. And I didn't really choose it. It chose me. But I do good work at that time. And I would hate an environment where they said, you're scheduled every morning at 8 a.m. rigorously. Because then I would miss my run and things because I'd go to bed at 3 in the morning or something. and not, right now I'm already getting too little sleep to get my run in and start my day at 9. But that's what I do. I start at 9 and nobody on my team gives me heck for it. Now, of course, if I'm facilitating for a client out of town, I'll start my day at 8. I don't care. I can make it exceptional, but I don't have to do it every day.
Right. And that's part of the workable. If I need you to do something with me at 8 o'clock, I ask, because I know that's not your, preference of hours, because we've communicated that with each other.
Right.
Well, so let's talk about anywhere. So anywhere has traditionally been, in the old days before March, it has been you can work from home or you can work remote 1 day a week or 2 days a week. And now we all moved home because we've been sheltering in place. And so we've been working anywhere or remote from home. And we want to broaden that and say anywhere literally is anywhere. So working from home is included in that. That is one big piece, and we're all functioning and have to have the setup and, the technology and everything that we need, to be as productive as possible at home. But also I could work from the car. I drove down to have lunch with my daughter yesterday. She lives in Iowa. It's a 3-hour drive. We met halfway. We needed to deliver some stuff to her. We met and had lunch with her. And I worked for an hour on the way down and an hour on the way back. And so that for me is anywhere. That's one example. I could work anywhere. I know some people don't like to hear the coffee shop, but we're not working too much in coffee shops right now, but sports are starting to open back up. So I could be sitting on the ball field. I saw the soccer players and the football players this weekend. So I might sit there while they're warming up and do an hour worth of work or, clear some emails or send a project that I committed to you. And so I can work literally from anywhere. And that's part of that control and that productivity. And how do I meet my commitments so it's workable based on when I can fit it in and based on where I am? And so I think that's one of the limiting factors that firms and maybe sometimes HR leaders, but sometimes, firm leaders want to put in place is we're talking about a work from home policy. And what we're talking about is remote policy is work from anywhere. And how can we do that? Now, we do have to have the technology in place and it has to be secure and VPNs and whatever else we need to do. We have a personal VPN that we use because prior to COVID, we were traveling in airports and hotel lobbies and clients and all of that. And so you have to have that in place and communicate the expectations around that as well. But how do we enable that? How do we facilitate that?
Right.
Is there anything you would add? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, this whole idea of anywhere and being safe, I think the biggest objection, I think there are a couple of objections that we probably hear, Tamera. One is I'm worried that my client data won't be safe or our firm data won't be safe because you're out there working, on this remotely in a public setting. So that's number one. And I think you started to address that with the technology. You can have screen blockers. There's all sorts of things. You have to tell your people like, okay, this is a place where I'm going to write an enabling policy that says, here's some do's and don'ts of working in a public space. One of them is, you're not having a phone call with clients in a super noisy environment where they can't hear you and you can't hear them, or where you're cell yelling and disturbing the entire piece of everybody there, right? You're never naming a client on the telephone in a public spot. I mean, maybe we have to put that stuff in writing and you might say, no, please don't make me just work from home or work from the office or work for my clients. I mean, that's what I think we want to do is just say, oh, I can't believe I have to write that stuff. But we probably have to write that stuff. I think we do. And there's a misnomer about anywhere work, especially anytime is a little easier to spot. Anywhere, there are people that have been doing anywhere work and sneaking around doing it and not doing it transparently forever. And you're not helping them do it safely. And so when we say you can't work anywhere, they're going to say, okay. And then they're going to work anywhere when they need to, because that's how it is. So when I talk about this with people, especially other women, professional women with big professional jobs, they'll say to me, oh man, I work in my car on the way on a road trip. I'll take 4 client files along as my priority, and I will get 4 hours of work or 5 hours of work on a road trip. I'm not driving, by the way, they'll say, their husband or their adult child is driving or whatever, but I'm getting that work done using my time productively. And so I think this has been going on for a long time. This isn't new. And that's what I think some firms are like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. Well, no, it isn't. This is happening. And if you empower it to happen, it'll stop being done sneakily. It'll start being done safely. And other people will get the idea, because here's the deal. You want your people to fit their work in and be productive. Right. And maybe you would get more production if you support anytime, anywhere work. So one objection is, I'm worried it won't be safe. The other is an objection called, I'm not sure you can really concentrate. Like, what are you doing, Jen, working? Because my daughter swam. So when I was in town, because I traveled a lot, I wanted to take her to the swim practice. And it was 2 hours after, like it was 4:30 to 6:30 or something. And she would get in the pool and put her face in the water and swim laps and never look up at me. She didn't care if I was watching, but she liked that I drove her there. We had that. We drove home together, and she knew I was there. She knew my laptop was coming, and she knew I was going to work 2 hours. Back then I had an EVDO card because they didn't have wireless. And I had other mechanisms to keep it safe. But, some people would say you couldn't concentrate. That couldn't have been quality work. Well, some people can't. Some people can. And if they can, and they can focus. And I wasn't social. I'll be honest. Really, I got an A in work at swim meetings, and I got an F for being a social swim mom. I wasn't a social swim mom, but kind of. I mean, I said hello and knew people's names, and I volunteered when they asked. But while I was there, they knew what I was doing, and they left me alone. And that's fitting it all in. And so I just think that those objections to anywhere work come up a lot.
Well, and I think that's a good point about fitting it all in, because I think our team today, if we were to talk about talent today in September 2020,
yes,
a lot of your team are struggling fitting it all in.
Oh my gosh.
They're feeling guilty about it. Some of them are speaking up, and then it might be heard like, they want you to reduce hours, or they don't get the financial, impact, and they might not. Then I start to talk about practice economics, and we need to teach about why we need to track time and how we're using it, not only from a financial perspective, billing and, projections from that perspective on the budget, but from scheduling and capacity. And if you aren't getting your, 2,080 hours or 2,200 hours or whatever our budget is, then we are going to be short on serving our clients. And so how do we facilitate that? But then we are limiting them in when they can work and not talking about how to get creative. And I think a lot of it's women, because, women still are responsible for the child rearing, the homework, the schedule. My son started online virtual school today, 100%. And, my husband was like, oh, well, is he set up? I'm like, yes, thank you very much. So it's like, that's how it fits in. But I think a lot of men are home also, and they're trying to facilitate it. And I know a managing partner, and she is working from 5 a.m. till 11 a.m. Then they have lunch together, and then they have the opposite shift. And then he's taking care of the kids because they've got young kids in elementary school. And that's how they've split it. Sometimes it's not that clean. And so we have to say, how do we facilitate that? And that's part of this, anywhere work, anytime and anywhere. How do I keep the commitments? And we have to be really clear about what the commitments are, what the production expectations are, what the phone calls and availability or accessibility requirements are. And then we say, then how do we fit the rest of it in? And I just think that's really important to be having a conversation with each of our team members about that right now.
Yeah. And just on that, like shift work with my spouse, or significant other, to try to manage the kids during this pandemic. So that's important. But also it's possible that we're going to have to support some of our people in this anytime, anywhere work in taking that reduced schedule.
Yes.
Some of them, to fit it in, they can't. They're not going to be able to produce as much as they did before because they're stuck a little bit with school. There's all kinds of school models, but there is one for little kids, like let's say kindergarten through 3rd grade, for the people that are stuck with this model that is your kid has to be on the phone on Zoom or whatever at 8 a.m. and they come off at 1:15 and they have this rigorous do this from this time and do that from this time, and they're supposed to time manage. I talked to one woman the other day. She's got a 1st grader. She said, my son can't read, so he can't click on all this stuff that they want him to click on. He can't go to the Schoology and find what he needs or whatever it is. She said, I am literally sitting there with him taking the class, and I have to, or he's not going to get it. Right. And he'll fail. And if our children are failing, most of us would quit what we're doing to make sure they're not anymore. So as employers, we do have to be flexible right now to empower fitting in homeschool or whatever this model is that your people are subjected to. And sadly, in the same city, different school districts are doing different things. And so it's not just one size fits one. I mean, it's one size fits one. The other thing, Tamara, you talked about time for a minute, and you talked about the importance of time entry. And I just want to say for all those listening that we have a dream that at some day that we will not care about time entry or that we won't have hours goals. Right. So I just want to be really clear for anybody who listened to that and thought, oh no, Tamara loves time. She doesn't. We just are
practical. That's what most firms are still using today. Yeah, that's the paradigm. That's how you're practical,
right? We're practical, and that is the measure. We do believe in output-based measures. Right. We think it is very difficult to, your people could all be saying they're doing the time and putting in the time, but not producing the output right now from home. That's happening for some. It's not happening for most. Tamara opened with remote work works, and it's because people are getting their production in. But time alone is not the right measure. And but we know it's there. And we know that there are some people who are freaking out because they can't get it done because they have all these other demands in the pandemic. And it may not just be kids. There are also people taking care of elderly parents. I'm totally involved with my folks who are 90. Thank God I have them. They're half a mile from me. And I have things that I have to do at times to support them in their independent living at home, and make sure that they're okay and keep them safe from the pandemic. My gosh, what a scary thing. And so it's not, we don't want to be overly biased towards school and kids. Everybody's got a different setup and a different thing that's causing them to need anytime, anywhere work support. But we just wanted to say today to you HR folks and those interested in talent that when you're going to revise these flex policies, let's work on max flex. Let's work on anytime, anywhere, and not like regulation. Let's regulate the heck out of things. Right. And try your best not to tie yourself in too tight or your people in too tight with this next revision.
And be enabling. Like if I the keyword, we want to enable. How can we enable that? And then we could put do's and don'ts and parameters in.
For sure.
Well, I know we could go on with this topic forever. So I think in our next chat here, our next HR huddle, I think we should talk about some of the other objections we get around remote, like how do we onboard and do orientation for people and recruiting and training and supervising and some of those questions that we get. So I think we can continue this discussion next time. But for now, we hope you got something out of the idea of this anytime, anywhere work. And as you're looking at policies and now the fall season, and reach out to us if you have questions. Let us know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Help you.
We've seen it all probably, or no, we haven't, because the pandemic took us down a whole new road. But the other thought is, if you have ideas of things you want to cover, and they don't have to be related to flex, anything in the realm of talent and HR, please, you can email us, Jen or Tamera at Convergence Coaching. You can message us. You guys are hooked up via Facebook here to either our company or my personal Facebook account. Also, you could message us, I think, on YouTube. You might not be able to, but if you can't, find us in social and let us know. And any other way that you want to reach to us, but tell us what you'd like to cover and we'll prioritize it. We really appreciate the opportunity to be in community with you and to talk with you. So the other thing is never hesitate to comment while we're going on these broadcasts. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.